Let's take another look at the article component. It now uses the context object to access the store. We've seen how introducing this global context object made testing things harder. If, for example, we want to test this article component now, we have to fake a context object. We can't even shallow render this component without that. This is one other reason why we should consider a different approach. One thing we can do is to split this article component into two. One component that's responsible for extracting the store out of the context API, and another responsible for rendering an article object. A component that does anything beside presenting UI is popularly known as a container component. So basically, we'll consider this article component here the presentational component, and then we'll create another component, call it article container. This is also a function component, and this component is going to be responsible for extracting the store out of the context. So the signature is the same, props and store out of context. And now from within the article container component, we simply return the article component, and we'll copy the props, the exact same props, just like that. So this is a pure container component, but now we have the option of passing the, for example, store as a property to the article component directly from the context here. Because this here will be the context object, so I'm destructuring the store out of that, and now I am passing the store as a property. Which means in the article component, I don't need to access the context anymore. I can read the store from the props. We can read it from here. This also means that I don't need the context types on the article component anymore. I just need it on the article container component, just like that. So let me move this part next to this part. And I need to export the article container in this case, because that's what I need to use. And now I have two separate components. A presentational component, which is easier to test now that it doesn't depend on a context object, and the container component with the only purpose of being responsible for extracting the store out of the context object. So this is much better already, but we can go one step further. We can actually make this article container component a generic one. Say, for example, that we want to access the store from other components. Instead of duplicating this container logic per component, we can create a generic function that generates a container component responsible for extracting the store out of the context object. That function is what popularly known as a higher order component.